Hey everyone, and welcome. For so many of us, Genesis chapter 1 is one of those passages we feel like we know inside and out. We know the rhythm, right? Day 1, day 2, the creation of light, land, and life. But today, we're going to pull back the curtain a little bit to look behind the story we think we know and to really get the radical, world-changing message it was meant to deliver right from the start. When we open this chapter today, we usually come at it with all our modern questions. We ask, okay, but is this scientifically accurate? Is it literal history or is it symbolic? And look, those can be interesting questions, but they often make us completely miss the question the text itself is trying to answer. Genesis 1 wasn't written for a 21st century science class. It was written to a world that had a totally different way of seeing God, creation, and, well, us.
So let's just dive right in. See, the main point of Genesis 1 isn't to give us a mechanical, step-by-step instruction manual for creation. It's meant to be a revelation. Its real job is to reveal the character of the Creator. It answers the biggest question of the ancient world: who is God, and what in the world is our relationship to Him? And believe me, how you answer that question changes absolutely everything.
And this idea, it really frames the entire Bible. Genesis isn't just some story that stands on its own. It's the very beginning of a huge epic story that God is telling. Just like the prophet Isaiah says, God declares the end right from the beginning. This first chapter is the opening scene, and it's all about establishing the identity of the main character, God himself, who has a purpose and a plan that's going to unfold across all of history. Okay, so to really feel the punch of this opening chapter, we've got to do a little time traveling. We need to step into the world of its very first audience. And this was a world jam-packed with powerful, competing stories about where everything came from. A world full of rival gods. So, the ancient Israelites, they were literally surrounded by the massive cultures of Babylon and Egypt. And in their way of seeing things, the universe wasn't made by one single all-powerful God. No way. It was born out of chaos, out of conflict, out of these violent wrestling matches between a whole bunch of unpredictable gods. For them, nature wasn't something God made, it was divine, and honestly, pretty terrifying. And this chart just lays out the difference so clearly. Look at this. The pagan world saw tons of gods. Genesis says, nope, there's only one. They believed creation was born from some messy, violent cosmic war. Genesis reveals a creator who is completely in charge of the chaos. They told stories about creation happening through conflict. Genesis shows us a creation that happens by a simple, powerful, spoken word. And this last one, this is the real game changer. They saw people as slaves, made to serve the gods. Genesis reveals that we are treasured, made in God's own image. Let's just get a specific example so you can see what I mean. If you look at the Babylonian creation myth, the Enuma Elish, the god Marduk fights the sea goddess Tiamat. And creation happens when he kills her and rips her body apart. He literally splits her like a shellfish to make the sky and the earth. I mean, it is violent, it's gruesome, and that was the blockbuster story of the day. And what about people? Where do we fit into that story? Well, humans are basically an afterthought. We're made from the blood of some other god who was defeated. And our purpose? The text says it plain as day: to be slaves, to do the hard work so the other gods could kick back and relax. Your entire identity was cosmic servant. Now, over in Egypt, it was a little different, but just as intense. For them, everything in the cosmos was alive with gods. The sun wasn't just a big ball of gas. That was the god Ra. The sky wasn't just an expanse. That was the goddess Nut. These weren't things that were made. They were gods you had to worship, fear, and constantly try to keep happy with rituals and sacrifices. So into this world of cosmic violence and divine chaos, Genesis 1 lands like a bombshell. It's not just another creation story, it's a direct and powerful counterargument to all of that. And right here is the fundamental difference. The God of Genesis doesn't create by fighting. He doesn't struggle against other gods or some dark cosmic force. He just speaks. Let there be light, and there's light. That's it. This is an act of pure, unopposed sovereign power, a total redefinition of what power even is. And check out the pattern that starts to build over the first 3 days. The world starts out as without form and void. It's basically a chaotic mess. So what does God do first? He brings order by separating things. He separates light from darkness, then the waters above from the waters below, and then the land from the sea. He is a God who brings beautiful, purposeful structure out of total formlessness. Then comes day 4, and a statement that would have absolutely blown the minds of its first audience. I mean, imagine you're an Egyptian. The sun god Ra is the most powerful being you can imagine. But Genesis comes along and says the sun doesn't even get a name. It's just the greater light, a created object, like a lamp that God hung in the sky to do a job for him. Genesis is knocking the most powerful gods of the ancient world off their thrones and calling them mere things. And this all comes down to a huge concept: sovereignty. You see, the pagan gods were often born from the chaos, but the God of the Bible, he stands completely outside of it all. He doesn't just manage the chaos, he creates the very ingredients for it. Like Isaiah says, I form light and create darkness. He is in total, effortless control. And that was meant to give his people this incredible security. There is no force anywhere in the universe that isn't under his command. All right, so after setting up the cosmos and filling it with life, the story builds to its absolute stunning peak: the creation of humankind. All through the creation story, you hear this rhythm. The animals are made according to their kind. But when God gets to humanity, the language shifts dramatically. It's like a divine meeting is called. Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. This is completely unique. Humanity isn't just made according to its kind. We're made according to God's kind. We find our whole identity right there in him. So what in the world does that actually mean for us? Well, it means we were made to be like mirrors, reflecting God's character, his love, his goodness, his justice out into the world. It means we're moral beings with real responsibility. We're not just another creature. We were put in charge as caretakers, as stewards of God's good creation. And maybe most importantly, it means we were designed from day one for a personal relationship with our Creator. And this right here is the revolutionary truth that just shatters that old pagan worldview. You are not a cosmic slave, born from the blood of a dead god to do all the hard work. You are a son, a daughter, created with incredible dignity and purpose, designed from the very beginning to know and to walk with the God who made you. So why is it so important that we get this ancient backstory? Because it completely redefines who we are and how we worship, even today. The Apostle Paul picks up on this exact theme centuries later. The story that got started way back in Genesis finds its ultimate fulfillment in Jesus. Through him, we aren't just image bearers, we are actually adopted into God's family. That old spirit of slavery, the fear that drove all that pagan worship, it's gone. And in its place, we get the spirit of adoption, which lets us come to God not as some scary tyrant, but as Abba Father. And this one little distinction, it changes everything about how we approach God. Pagan worship was all about appeasement, doing all the right rituals and sacrifices to keep these angry, unpredictable gods off your back. But our relationship with God is completely different. We serve him not out of fear to appease his anger, but out of love, to please the Father who loved us first. It's a service that comes from joy, not from dread. And honestly, this gives us such incredible hope. The very same God whose word separated light from darkness, who brought beautiful order out of a formless mess, is the same God who is at work in our lives right now. When our lives feel chaotic, formless, and void, he is the one who can speak into our personal darkness and bring his light and his peace. So I just want to leave you with this to think about. If your truest identity is not slave, but is beloved image bearer, someone who is trusted to reflect God's character to the world, how does that change things? How might you consciously go about representing the goodness, the order, and the love of your Creator in your family, at your job, and in your community this week?